Good Thursday to you, everybody in Com 710. Welcome again to week boom, bam, 11 and our review of week boom, 10. Let's get this kicked off correct. A little tea this now afternoon, unpartial to Earl Grey, because I am, believe you me, sufficiently caffeinated and here again to talk about the questions from last week. See what we're after, see what you said, see what you're taking away. Okay. So I gave you a series of articles on health and wealth, prosperity, gospel, and this is within the context of some of the effects, media effects of Western media on the international scene, and some of the sides of it that people are not too terribly thrilled about. So it's not always about what it is we love as Westerners. It's also about what others others take away from the media that's put out that maybe they don't love. Okay, fair enough, right? Fair enough question. Okay. And so I asked you, first of all, you should always be evaluating sources and how they treat their material. Be on the lookout for bias and amongst ourselves. Also, as researchers, remember when you put on that researcher cap to be an investigator, not an advocator. Okay, now you can advocate for your cause. I certainly do. I have things that I want to see happen and that I advocate for. But when you're investigating, try to be as impartial as you can, because you will be a stronger advocator if you are an impartial investigator, because you'll be able to say, hey, the data says this and the data points to that. And also be aware, especially in some of the fields that you might find yourself in as a Christian researcher or someone with a Christian worldview, not everybody's your friend. And there are going to be both people who disagree with you. And the stronger your case is for whatever it is that you're delving into, the harder it's going to be for them to dismiss your findings. Okay. So always ask that question when you pick up a source. Okay. So question number one. Consider Mondays or Mondays. I don't quite know the pronunciation of the name. Review of Joel Osteen's works. In your opinion, is Peter Monday's are Peter's conclusions evidence-based? Are they informative? Are they unbiased? So I always want you to be asking those questions. Holly, you went first on this one. Let's take you first. I found Monday's review interesting. I listened to a podcast weekly called Unveiling Grace. Joel Osteen was the co-host of the podcast for years. He's no longer the co-host of the podcast. Dr. Lynn Wilder's husband took the role because of Osteen's many responsibilities. I've yet to read many of Osteen's work, even though his thoughts and sermons on the podcast have been really beneficial. So it was interesting to see this article and how he coded Osteen's work. Very important point here, Holly. When you look at qualitative research, go to these foundational structures that determine what evidence comes out. And one of those is coding. It's not unlike when you see quantitative research, the first thing you should do is get your hands on the survey. And if, by the way, if a quantitative researcher is not including the survey instrument in the presentation of their findings, her findings, theirs improper, that's a red flag. Okay, that they're either they don't understand good methodology or they're hiding something. Same goes with qualitative research. Look at the coding. Interesting to see the article on how he coded Osteen's works. His conclusions are evidence-based. He coded in themes and provided concrete examples for each. Joel's story of his mom being blessed with a swimming pool is one in which she wanted to support the argument that when first putting God first, people are blessed. The author was not unbiased, though. You could tell by his keywords the author used to describe Osteen and unsupported claims that readers of Osteen's work follow through on the advice. Okay, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that last sentence, Holly. So, I read it before I start the video, but let me read it again. The author was not unbiased, though. You could tell by the keywords the author used to describe Osteen and the unsupported claims that readers of Osteen's work follow through on the advice? Okay. Again, maybe a little clarity for me. But anyway, okay. So yeah, I thought his methodology was likewise pretty good. Okay. Mike, on the other hand, let's take a counterpoint. Let's look at your answer. Said, I agree with Holly, first person, that the author did some coding, but I didn't see where he outlined his methodology or defined his terms. Lack of definition shows the author's bias, resulting in ineffective research. The most glaring example is the repeated use of Osteen's theology and the spirit of consumerism. Mundries explained Osteen's theology to some degree, but in a cursory manner, and the spirit of consumerism is never fully defined. Okay, good point. Okay. All right, good answers to both of you. Now, these questions, I'm giving it to you this way on purpose. There's not a right answer, wrong answer. There is your evaluation answer. Now, if you ask me about the research, and I give you my opinion, but that's, my opinion is not the point of these exercises. Okay, question number 2. Woodbridge outlined several underlying reasons for the spread of prosperity gospel. Which of these, in your opinion, best explains prosperity gospel spread, PG, to countries in Africa? Okay, Mike, we took you second, but let's take you first. Woodbridge 2015 states that prosperity gospel rooted in American American New Thought philosophy. Sorry, you wrote it perfectly. I'm just having, a not caffeinated enough moment. Personified by Norman Vincent Peale, and this is, how to win friends and influence people. Appeals to a longing to be successful and secure and need to realize the American dream. Certain uniquely American culture aspects, frameworks of capitalism, church cultural influences rather than scripture. Robinson sees the spread of the prosperity gospel in Africa due to its patriarchal nature and the proliferation of media and the energy of the message and the messengers. While all three elements contribute, the proliferation of this message in the media is the strongest influence. And hence, that's why we're here. Okay, for audiences who see the slick mediated messages of televangelists, the promise of prosperity gospel is hard to resist. There is a simplicity of prosperity gospel that translates well to television, primarily since it's never been it never handles its nuances well, but excels in simplification of any issue. In addition, American television televangelists can purchase airtime in Africa for a fraction of what it costs to buy airtime in the U.S. The market is too appealing and the cost too low to truly grow a global following. Okay, good point. I think that's an excellent summation, Mike. Now, for those of you, I've worked in Africa. I mean, Africa's an enormous continent. All right, but I've worked in, I don't know, 5 or 6 different countries there, and there is a lot of difference. I mean, West Coast is not like the East Coast, and the North is definitely not like the center or the South. But I've worked in all of the major regions. I've worked in the North in the Arab region. I've worked in the West, the region of Ghana, in the country of Ghana and Nigeria. I've worked in the East in Tanzania and Kenya, and I've worked in the central part in Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana, and I've worked in the South in South Africa. Okay. If you've never seen some of these prosperity gospel preachers, I mean, you can find them all over on YouTube. I suggest that you take a look. There might be a nuance to some that you find here in the U.S., but there's such a ham-fisted, send me your money and you'll prosper aspect to this, and they are all over the place. In some countries, some African countries are cracking down and banning the televising of these meetings, or even the allowance for them to be held at all. Okay, so this is not some sort of superficial, maybe there's a problem here issue. This is really pronounced throughout the continent. Okay, question 3. According to Arthur Stone, Why is the prosperity gospel spreading throughout Africa? In your opinion, should anything be done about it? So here, now we come back to our advocacy side as Christian communication scholars. Okay, when we identify a phenomenon rather than just sort of, do we have an obligation to act? That is the question. Let's take a look at Erica. According to Arthur Stone, prosperity gospel is spreading throughout Africa because its patriarchal society and television radio dominates the airwaves with the charismatic energy of these preachers. And by the way, within the core of media effects, for your own sake as a media consumer, the data is pretty clear. The influence factor, I was going to say manipulation factor, but let's just call it the influence factor of media goes up as the visualization goes up. So if and we're human too, and if you want to try to evaluate media without the undue influence of production, pick media. Written form is best, and that doesn't mean somebody can't try to pull the wool over your eyes in writing. It happens all the time. It's easier for your brain to see it. Written, okay, no pictures, just straight text. Watch out for images. They can be tremendously influential, especially still images. People think, who uses photographs anymore? One of the advantages that a photograph has that a video doesn't is that your mind will put the action into motion. So it becomes very personalized, and then that action repeats in perpetuity. Do you remember the cartoonist Gary Larson? He used to draw a cartoon called The Far Side. Right, it was very popular in the 80s and 90s. I read an interview with him once in which he said he sort of had a personal epiphany, a revelation as to what people were getting from his work, because there was a cartoon that he had published, and it was and he tended to anthropomorphize animals, that is, put them in cartoon form into human behavior. And in this cartoon, there was a pole with a rope, and on the rope was a cat tied by the tail, and at the base of the pole were two dogs hitting the cat around the pole, and it was just a one frame still. And the name, he called it, the name of the frame was, the cartoon was called Tether Cat. I don't know if you ever grew up playing or saw people play tether ball, in which you hit a ball on a rope that went around a pole, and the person that got it to wrap around the pole first won. Okay, so he publishes this cartoon, calls it Tether Cat, and he gets this avalanche of negative letters about it. That's terrible. How dare you? And he's like, hey, it's a cartoon. I didn't actually have dogs model the whacking of a cat, but he said he had a revelation, he had an epiphany, he had a realization that in the minds of the viewer, forever and ever, that poor cat was being smacked around the pole. So watch out for still images. Okay, so written text with images, but be aware of that second part. Audio, and the lowest of the low, the one that it's hardest for your brain to resist the influence, is video. Okay, so in terms of media effects, watch out for that. Okay, back to question number 2. Several underlying reasons spread of prosperity gospel. Which of these best explains it in Africa? And let's go back to you, Erica. One reason to appeal to natural human desire to be successful. Okay, healthy, financially secure. The economic gaps between rich and poor in Africa are undeniable. As the American evangelical movement used the diffusion of mass media, it drew more African interest in the new prosperity gospel thought. It is natural to be successful. Woodbridge expresses concern about how people view riches as a natural expectation. This can also cause people to suffer. People in austere conditions likely seek ways to get out of poverty. Okay, yeah, but now I want you, I want you to feel free to answer, the question. Should we be doing anything about it? Okay, so let's jump over to question number 3. Okay. So, we have the reasons why. Should there be anything that we do about it? Okay. Um, I believe, and back to you, Erica. I believe that showing well-founded research or writing like blogs and media, truthful statements about the gospel without regards to prosperity. After all, we are called to spread the gospel through our own gifts, just like the preachers have the mic through the mass media. Today's individuals, like each of us, also have access to the mic. Okay, so it's interesting. To counteract the negatives or false teaching. So, Erica, I take it you say yes. Okay, let's grab somebody else. Mike, something needs to be done about it. I think that it falls on the shoulders of the missionaries of Arthur Stone addresses when he recommends long-term discipleship in return to Orthodox Christianity and preaching to the energy of the Africans while holding on to their theological convictions. Okay, I think that's fair. I think that's well said. Okay, so after we take a look at the methodology concerning Osteen, we took a look at some of the reasons for prosperity gospel. Why in Africa, and should we do anything about it? Question number 4, according to Thomas and Lee, what is the pivotal role played by television viewing as leisure activity throughout the world? Back to media effects through visual media. Holly, article discusses how television were being gifted to homes in low-income families, making television a primary form of entertainment worldwide. It also became available around the clock. You could go home, watch TV any time of day, and you're playing outside. You have the sun that can limit your activities once it's dark. Most people go home, but you can still watch television after it becomes dark. It also made a great point about religion being spread on television. There's a reason why it's still popular and has lasted for generations. Now, I didn't understand what you were getting at here, Holly. Do you mean TV or religion? People, beware of ambiguity in your antecedents. People can watch sermons on TV from the comfort of their own home and still be connected. Okay. Okay. That's fair enough. But what else by way of leisure time? Mike, let's see what you have to say. Thomas and Lee discuss how changing technology and television, including deregulation, cable, satellite proliferation, penetration, mobile phones, are transforming how people watch television. The number of people to whom it is available. Television is now amplified. By extension, televangelists use the amplification to extend their message. This has created unprecedented spread on global scale. Okay, good. Television is still the most popular medium of influence the ordinary lives of billions of people, with results in a redefining of cultural norms globally. Thomas and Lee see televangelism as a global cross-religious phenomenon, and they see the expansion of these programs in selling not only personality, but also products designed to broaden the reach of religion. Okay, all excellent answers. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I didn't build this into the question, but one of the things that we must be aware of is that television is now and has always been a commercial enterprise. So it's not like it comes into a home. And when I say television, we're not talking strictly about a strict definition of the device, the thing that sits on the stand or hangs on the wall. We're talking about media platforms, although the media effects of various platforms vary. We're going to recognize that. But anyway, it has always come with a commercial angle. That is, somebody wants to influence the behavior of somebody else on the receiving end for the purpose of financial gain. Now, the pivotal question that we as media scholars should be addressing, it's not a bad thing to want to realize a profit from your labors, and we need stuff. I need a container to put my tea in. I apparently need an instructional booklet to explain to me how to use it, because I almost poured it all over my sweater. Okay, yeah. I need implements to write with and keyboards to type with. Yeah, okay, fine. But the question we should be highly attentive to, and our service offer to the public, is the communication arrangement of this commercial endeavor, one that takes into account the mutual benefit of the parties? Or is it an arrangement that focuses on the benefit of the sending party without awareness of the benefit of the receiving party? That, I believe, is a fair question for us as media scholars, especially if you're interested in media and media effects. Okay, sort of Marshall McLuhan, of whom I'm a big devotee. All right, everybody. Thank you so very much. About 20 minutes where I want to keep these things. Keep working on those research papers. I'll have your second class presentation to you back before the end of the week. And then, enjoy the weekend. I think about you. I pray about you. Have a great, great rest of the week. I'll see you on Canvas. Bye-bye.